Hey, grade 7. So we continue on with the last bit of new stuff for our circles unit. In this one, we're learning about how to make circle graphs or pie charts. Of course, being at our houses and without geometry sets from school, we aren't able to actually fully make them since we have to measure out the angles. But we can learn the theory of how to build it, and then you'll be saved the actual having to draw it out, I suppose, and instead just list what the degrees would be when making these circle graphs. So let's take a look at a circle here. So a full circle is 360 degrees. You might know this from like watching skateboarding videos or snowboarding or something like that, but like a full turn is 360 degrees. A full circle is 360 degrees. So that's really the starting point. So we have to always remember a circle is 360 degrees. Let's say that we wanted to find out what 25% of a circle is. So I wanted to find out the angle for this part of it. I could turn 25% into a decimal, multiply it by 360, it would come back as being 90 degrees. And you'll notice that this looks like a right angle. I could put a little square there. So you can see that this is called a central angle, and this one for 25% is a 90-degree angle. Let's say I want to find out how much of the circle was 50%. Well, I could turn 50% into 0.5, multiply it by 360. I find it's 180 degrees. So half of a circle is 180 degrees. So this central angle is 180 degrees right here. And then I've got two smaller ones. So let's say I want to know how many degrees to do for 20%. I would turn 20% into a decimal, which is 0.2, multiply by 360, 72 degrees comes back, so this central angle is 72 degrees. If I want to find it for 5%, I turn it into a decimal, 0.05, multiplied by 360, 18 degrees. So finding out these different central angles is really what you need to do in order to be constructing your own circle graphs. Now, since we're doing this without actually constructing them, we're basically going to fill in charts like this one. So we're going to have like a survey or something, we're going to find out how many people chose it, and then we are going to get to the totals. And then we'll find out what percent of people chose it, what the decimal is like compared to that percent, and then we're going to find out what the central angle in that circle graph would be. So basically, if we were to make a circle graph, we're finding out how many degrees we would have to make it if we were to construct it. So let's take a look at this thing right here. So students are choosing their favorite colors. The options were dark green, blue, and green. We've got 28 students who chose dark green, 16 students who chose blue, 36 students chose green, 80 students in total. So the total percent I can already fill in here. No matter what, it's going to be 100% because that's how many people are going to be in total. The total decimals are going to be 1.00, and a full circle is 360 degrees. So I know these things in advance. So how many students chose dark green? Well, 28 out of 80 students chose dark green. So I can choose to turn this, using my calculator, into a decimal. So what I'm going to do is 28 divided by 80. The answer comes back that it is 0.35. So that tells me what the decimal value for this one is. What's 0.35 as a percent? It's 35%. So if I was making this circle graph, I would label it as being 35% of people chose dark green. Now, how am I going to find out how much of the 360 degrees this should take up? Well, I'll take that 0.35 and I multiply it by the whole, which is 360 in this case. And it'll tell me how many degrees to make that angle. The answer comes back that it's 126 degrees. So that's how big that one would be. If I was to be making a circle graph now, I would have a blank circle, something like this. I would find out how many degrees it would be to get to 126. And I would measure it out, and then I would make the circle graph at that spot. But again, we're not doing that part of it. So next we have 16 students who chose blue. Again, it's 16 out of 80. I need to find out what that is like as a percent. So to find it as a percent, again, I'm going to take that 16, I'm going to divide it by 80, because every fraction symbol really is the divide sign. 16 divided by 80 will come back as being 0.2. So I can write that down here as the decimal value for it, 0.2 for that one. How can I find out what that is as a percent? Well, I can move the decimal over 2 spots. It comes back as being 20%. How can I find out the central angle if I am making that circle graph? Well, I can take that 0.2, multiply it by 360, and it comes back as being 72 degrees. So that is how big that central angle would be if I was making this into a circle graph. My last one over here is that 36 people chose green, the most popular color in this case. So it's 36 out of 80. Once again, I can do 36 divided by 80, because every fraction is really a division problem. It tells me what the decimal would be. 36 divided by 80 comes back as being 0.45 when I punch into my calculator. So 0.45 is the decimal value, 45% is the percent. And notice how 35 plus 20 plus 45, that equals 100%. 0.35 plus 0.2 plus 0.45, that adds up to being a whole. So we know that these numbers are all right. They all line up and make the entire thing. I do have to find out what that last central angle is going to be. So what I could do is I could take 0.45, multiply it by 360. It comes back as being 162 degrees. Now I'm quite happy to see that this one is the biggest angle since it was the most popular one. So it should be the biggest inside angle on the circle graph. This one was the second most popular, so it is the second biggest, and this one was the least popular, so it's the smallest section. That is how we can fill in these kinds of charts, which we'll use to complete this part of our math unit.